we brought someone in that's a great reason to view what we're doing on the television side of things, and her name is Diane Canada. I just had the wonderful pleasure of meeting her, bringing her in. She's got an event tonight. She's got a great podcast up and running, and she is all about this election that's coming up in 26 days, and we were just talking about it, and it is a pleasure to introduce our audience to Diane Canada. Good afternoon.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. You were just telling me that you're now in Cheatham County?
Cheatham County, I am.
That's God's country out there.
I mean, I feel like I moved into a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
I do. I totally do.
It's and I feel like it's untapped. I've only been here since 2021. I don't know. How long have you been in the area?
23 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, a long time. I was so dug in Brentwood. Didn't think I'd ever budge. You know, I've lived in some different areas of Nashville, but was in Brentwood, Franklin, the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it there. And then I ran for office in 2020. After the election was over, we moved out there, and I just cannot believe how much I love it. I don't consider myself a country girl. Like I like it as long as the wildlife stays a little bit at bay. Uh-huh. I don't want them like all up in my porch.
Oh, sure. They won't eat much. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
yeah. Don't worry about them. They won't eat anything. Right. Coyotes and the like and all of that sort of thing.
Just stay a nice little distance away. So.
I am a country boy, so I like to say that I trust four-legged creatures more than two-legged creatures.
I get that.
They're more honest in the way that they treat you, right?
It's true.
Well, what in the world led you into the world of politics in 2020?
I went kicking and screaming in. Got to tell you, never had any ambition to go in politics. I lost my brother, who was a Marine, to PTSD. He also had a brain injury from an IED that went off when he served over there. We were a couple of years into the healing process from after his loss. And God just started nudging, like, how when the Lord's just talking to you, it just becomes louder and louder until you finally get it. It took me a little while, but I had some ideas that started bubbling up on how we could help veterans, thinking about getting them the help before they're separated from service. It's just part of the out processing. Started mulling on that. And that's really all I cared about doing was helping veterans. But of course, you have to go on the record about all these other things you believe. And I'd never stop myself to ask, like, how do I feel about abortion? How do I feel about, so when I started studying, I went really deep. I'm one of these, I go like inch wide, mile deep whenever I'm doing anything.
Sure.
So really studied, spent a lot of time up on at the Capitol, got to know the legislators, shadowed them, tried to really learn the job. And when I started going public with my platform, I mean, it was like Pandora's box. Everybody, they're so vicious, coming against so viciously, including my adult son. And, we just never had talked about politics. But it was motivated by my brother, trying to help the veterans. That was the whole purpose.
So you bring this up. I mean, so this created you being more and more vocal about what you believe in and how you believe to best benefit our fellow countrymen, our fellow Tennesseans. I mean, it led to family schism.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sad.
It's sad, but I believe God repurposes the pain, and now it makes sense now. I think I needed to go deep on those topics. I needed to understand the cultural issues. I needed to understand so much more about our country. I mean, I've got like a massive history lesson to Constitution classes. I mean, I learned so much about our country that I wish I had known before that.
It gave me, you and I were talking a little bit off air, and it gave me a little solace. I was telling you my story about one of my best friends in the world who cut me off after Trump was elected in 2016.
I'm so sorry.
And then he wanted to reconnect in 2020 because Biden was president now, as if that made it all good. And I said, no, that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
And it bothered me for a long, long time, Diane. And then I realized, and I know it's a little more difficult with family than maybe with friends, but I realized I haven't changed. Mm-hmm. They did. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry that whatever Trump represents and presents to the American people has done that to them. But so I can't alter myself in any way that would help them because it's them that's changed, not me. And I just have to believe that because I mean, I think a lot of things changed after 2016.
Yeah. Well, they're driven by emotion. A lot of people who are on the left, emotion is driving all their behavior and their decisions. Mm-hmm. We are about logic. We're about what's rooted in truth on our party. And it's not even about party, just being an American. If we know what our values are, we know what we stand for. People, I hear Biden talking about we're fighting for the soul of our nation. Most people don't even know what that means, but it sounds emotionally charged. So I think that it's like emotions. When it's fleeting like that, then the behavior is fleeting too. So they're coming back, oh, I'm sorry, and you're like, man, like you said, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
It's just not a healthy way to have a relationship. You can't be driven by that.
So was it, your run in 2020? And you ran for what?
State House of Representatives. I was trying to win us back the Beth Harwell seat.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I was running against Bob Freeman. He took the seat when she stepped out to run for governor. And so I was trying to win it back. And COVID hit. I mean, it was like the worst conditions, Matt, for running for office. But
not like you can get out and knock on doors and introduce yourself, right?
We did have, when the mayor Cooper was trying to, implement that big tax hike, then that gave me an opportunity to go sit in a tent all day and help try to recall him. And so that gave me a chance to meet all my constituents. They were like, they couldn't turn their cars around fast enough to come sign the petition.
Hold on, I have to hey, Belle, did you hear that? Diane was fighting against the property tax is the property tax increase? The property tax increase. Belle likes you already.
Oh, awesome.
Because Belle is a citizen of Davidson County, and every time Cooper's brought up, the property tax increase gets brought up, right?
Well, he came in and did a interview when Dan Mandis was still in this time slot and told Dan, this was before his election, that his intention was to govern as a fiscal conservative, which turned out to be a lie.
Let's just say it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's my understanding that if our man Freddie O'Connell doesn't get his transit tax increase, his sales tax increase, he's going to come back for a double dip on the property tax end next year, is my understanding. So
that's a complex issue. One of my friends, Courtney Johnston, serves on the council. I know she did a great blog about it the other day, just all the intricacies of it. Things are not simple in government, and I get that. I'm going to learn that firsthand running. When you fix one thing, you break 10, so that's why government shouldn't be all up in our business. We should be able to be self-governing.
I tell people all the time, and they think that it's just a slogan, but I consider myself a libertarian with a small L, right? I don't belong to the Libertarian Party, but I believe in that basic philosophy of government. The government serves best when it serves least and only when necessary.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. That's right. That's exactly right. It's so bloated now. They're all up in our business, and that was never the intention at our founding.
Of course not. So did you parlay that run in 2020 to the podcast, Lady Up America?
The podcast came later. A little bit. So when the race was over, we ended up finishing at 46%, which with all the obstacles, we were really proud of that. But I was also kind of a little bit mad at God. I was like, why did you put me through that?
You did all this to me and only to lose?
Yeah, lose. I lost relationship with my son. I lost all my friends. And so I was just kind of licking my wounds a little. And we moved out to Cheatham, and it got me into kind of a place of solitude a bit. And I was just in a lot of prayer. And I'm like, Lord, what was the point? And then the Afghanistan thing happened, where Biden just, oh my gosh, the way he pulled us out of Afghanistan, everything my brother had gone through there.
And 13 are dead as a result of the disaster.
It was the hardest thing to watch that. And then that's when it kicked in. Like, that's when the idea for Lady Up America really started. It kind of all came together at that point.
Tell me what the purpose behind it is.
Yeah. So after losing relationships like I did, my own son, all of that, I realized that God had been teaching me how to have these really hard conversations and how to win people and not get canceled. He's been teaching me that my whole life in other areas that I'd been in professional songwriting, about messaging, and then in crisis consulting, where I had to go into hostile environments and kind of turn the boat around and get it, floating right again. I knew how to have these conversations. It just didn't click that it would apply to the political conversation. Just did not dawn on me. So this is sort of what has been, developing over the last few years. So basically what I'm doing is I'm teaching women how to not screw it up like I did. I'm teaching women Christian conservative moms specifically is my niche, but teaching them how to have these really hard cultural conversations with your grown kids or your, teenage kids, your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, how to have those conversations gracefully and win people to our conservative values without the fight and with a lot more finesse and not the fight.
So I saw a stat, and I think it was men and women, but I think I saw a survey where only 60 some odd % of Christians are voting.
Oh, yeah. 40% sit home. Yeah.
And I just feel like if you get that 40% out to vote, that this thing isn't even close.
Not even close.
And no one is suggesting that Donald Trump is a perfect guy. Nobody suggests that he says things perfectly. But, there's also nothing. I mean, if we talk about from a faith-based perspective, there's nothing that says that the vessel is going to be perfect to begin with, right?
Well, whoever was. I mean, look at all the Bible stories. Gideon. I mean, nobody Paul.
I mean, there was only one, and they hung him on a cross.
That's right. That's right.
So, I mean, so if we just get that message out. So, what do you find when you speak to women's groups? Maybe these are conservative oriented women's groups. I don't know, but, what do you get back in return as to what their values are? What's important to them?
They're all on board with conservative values. Most moms are conservatives. They just don't realize it. Mm-hmm. Most of them are. The only thing that's really separating that right now is the abortion issue. That's where we're apart. But all the other moms, they want safe streets. They want their kids to be able to go to schools and learn ABCs and arithmetic, not indoctrination camps. They all want these things. We want, limited government. We want a good economy. We want to be able to, provide for our children. They all want these things. So one of the things that came up when I was building Lady Up America, I heard Marsha Blackburn one day in an interview. She said, well, we believe in the rule of law as conservatives. And again, not being acclimated to politics, I was like, where did she get that? And then I heard somebody else say, well, are you a fiscal conservative? And I'm like, what does that mean? So I went digging for those, and I found the 7 conservative values of the Republican Party. I found them on who's now Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson's website. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of integrated that a lot into my teaching. And it's kind of like a Cliff Notes version of our Constitution. Like if these seven values are the soul of our nation. And like I said, most of these women believe in these limited government, human dignity, and peace through strength, and the rule of law, all these things. So what I tell my ladies is you may not have to go take a Constitution class, but you can remember 7 values. And we're not trying to return to something old and antiquated. Because this is where progressives get us, right? They're like, y'all are.
They want to put you back in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah. No, if you look at these as instead the load-bearing walls of our country, and we're trying to take the hammer out of the hands of those trying to knock them down. So we're trying to reinforce these load-bearing walls. And so most suburban moms are all for them. Do you think
the Republican Party, and I'm not a Republican. I like to say that I don't belong to any club that would have me as a member, much like Groucho Marx said back in the day. But do you feel like the Republican Party in that regard has a reputation problem, specifically with, let's say, 30-something-year-old moms, where it has a little bit of a reputation, and maybe it's earned, maybe it's unearned, where they feel like, this concept of handmaid's tale nonsense has kind of been ingrained in them from such an early age that it's hard for them to shake it?
I mean, so here's what I think. I think there's messaging problems on both sides of the aisle. I mean, I'm not going to say Republicans don't have a lot of work to do in that area, especially when it comes to messaging to women. I mean, I can understand why they think that. The Republican Party's had a lot of labels, a lot of stigmas they've had to overcome, but most people don't realize they're the party that tried to abolish slavery. They're the party that is for all these 7 load-bearing walls that I talked about. Again, not a perfect party, warts and all, but we are the conservative party. And so this is why I rally behind Republicans. I know we've got corruption in our party too. I know all that. And I get where the women are coming from. We're not trying to put women back in the kitchen. That's not the ideal. The way God designed the nuclear family was the husband was supposed to love the wife just like Jesus loved the church. You don't submit to all men, right? It's not a submission. It's not an oppression. It's that when you've got a godly man, then you understand that hierarchy is necessary. That the best government is the nuclear family. Mm-hmm. What happens there spills out onto the city streets. So we're never going to fix it with a law. We're never going to fix it with government. It has to start in the home. And so there are roles that we all have that God designed that when in a healthy household, then they work really well.
Diane Canada is our guest. Lady Up America is the podcast. I'm going to tell you how you can witness the podcast with your very eyes tonight, right? Tonight. We'll do that right after this. Quick timeout. Diane,
what the hell is wrong with you?
Why would I call it the Dentist Newscast?
Why would you call
Why would I call it that?
The Dentist Newscast?
Yes, it's the one and only Dentist Newscast that happens.
Because your sense of humor is painful?
because
you have a high tolerance for pain?
Because it's at 2:30. I like Diane. She didn't give me a courtesy laugh, Weaver. She just
you failed.
Kind of look at me.
She just went, oh.
Is that why you call it that? Well, that's nice. Can we continue with the interview now?
I was hearing you talk about the boat stuff earlier, about the sailboat stuff. I feel your pain. I went out on a boat like when I was in my early 20s, never worked so hard. Pull the jib, pull the jib. I'm like, what is the jib?
Right. Am I right? Because you go out, but they don't tell you any of that. They say, hey, do you want to go out on the sailboat?
Sounds like a leisurely.
Oh, and we're going to be sipping Mai Tais.
The Christopher Cross sailing song in the background.
Exactly right. Everything's,
not so much.
You're working your butt off and focused every second not to fall off.
Exactly. And then you want to kill the pilot when you get back, or the captain. Or
After I didn't mention it was 12 hours around Long Island and back. 12 hours. It's off. All right, so tell us about tonight.
Yes. Awesome. So down at Foolin's, which is an Asian restaurant in the Target shopping center in Brentwood, right there at the interstate, 6 o'clock. Everybody gathers up. We're going to kind of get everybody seated. And then 6:30, we're broadcasting my podcast live from there. Steve Gill is my co-host for the night.
Yeah, we know Steve.
Y'all know Steve. And great conservative voice for anybody who may not know. He's been around for a long time. He really has great perspective on how the federal issues and the state issues are complementary but different. So he's going to help us understand that. And then we've also got 3 candidates that are running. So we're going to have Wyatt Rampey there, who's running for state senate. We're going to have Chad Bobo, who is running for House Representatives.
I know Chad.
And also we're going to have Jennifer Frensley Webb there. So 3 of them are on the hot seat tonight. And we're just going to be, helping people understand. Like, I know when I ran for office, there was so much from the audience perspective that, I just didn't understand how state and federal government worked. I didn't understand the difference.
Right.
And so we're going to try to help maybe fill in some blanks for people tonight. It's sponsored by the God Bless the USA Bible, which is endorsed by Lee Greenwood and Donald Trump. Just had Lee on my podcast right before I came here, so it's going to air on Tuesday for anybody who'd like to see it. But yeah, we just got a lot of good momentum behind it tonight and would love for people to come out.
All right, so it starts at what time again?
Everybody gathers up at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
It's a production, so we need everybody there and seated by 6:30. We hit the red button at 6:30, and it's going to go live stream out on YouTube tonight. And then we'll also be taping it to run next week as a traditional podcast. My podcast is on Salem Media and then all traditional podcast channels too.
Belle, do you have a question for Diane before she has to go? Obviously, we talked about a particular question prior to her coming today. Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, how the hell is your last name Canada?
I can tell you've thought a lot about that one. I appreciate it.
It's like,
No, that's the one he said, why are we letting somebody from another country on the show? I was like, I think that's just her name.
You know what
Belle.
it is? I'll tell you what happened. My husband's family when his
she's already passing the buck.
His grandfather came to Ellis Island and probably just misspelled it. They're from Ireland, so I think it was part of the Canada family, and they just misspelled it.
And so you oh well, there you go, Belle. Asked and answered.
It's not near as nefarious as you thought.
She blamed her husband. That's what she did.
I don't believe her.
What is before you go in the minute or so that we have left? What is the message, particularly the message to female voters, female moms?
Sitting this election out is not an option. We are at a crossroads. It's either Donald Trump or it's straight up Marxism. So it's hard to vote. If you got to hold your nose to vote for him, I don't care, but you better be at that poll voting for him on November 5th, or we are handing our children over to Marxists. And that's my message.
That's well spoken. I wish and hope that he continues the message over the next 30 days. I heard him in Pennsylvania. This was during his town hall with Sean Hannity. And I thought it was a message that he needed to resonate over and over again. You don't have to like me. I understand if you don't.
Yeah.
But understand your existence in Pennsylvania depends on me, because she's going to kill you.
Absolutely.
She's going to destroy you.
They've already shown us what they can do the last 4 years. Believe them. They'll finish it off. They'll finish America off the next 4. And I don't care if people say, oh, you're fear-mongering, all that. No, this could not be more serious. And so every mom out there listening, I hope to God you're registered, and I hope you will go vote.
Diane, it's wonderful to meet you.
Nice to
Come
meet
back
you too.
anytime.
Thanks
We'll invite you back on.
Appreciate it so much.
There's Diane Canada. It is Lady Up America is the podcast, and you're invited to go out to Foolin'. Did I say that right?
Foolin's.
Foolin's restaurant in the Target shopping center in Brentwood.
Yep.